Greetings and welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, trying to be smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. I won't ruin this moment by singing whatsoever, but I am your captain, Myrriah Gossett. And with me on the view screen, we have
Clyde Haynes, and these are the voyages of the starship Hamilton.
Wow. And Paul Tatacha here.
Oh, Paul, we are here. And if it hasn't been made apparent yet, we are covering Subspace Rhapsody this evening, the penultimate episode of the second season of Strange New Worlds. This was directed by Dermot Downes and written by Dana Horgan and Bill Wolkoff. Fun fact, Dermot was actually a kid actor before becoming a cinematographer and a director. And he was in one of my favorite weird kid horror movies, which is Escape from Witch Mountain.
Ooh.
Wow.
If you remember that one.
Of course, not.
But I think we just have a couple of reminders first. Paul, can you tell folks where they can listen to and subscribe?
Hey, guys, if you want to subscribe to our podcast, do so on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. All links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you love our content or merely tolerate it, consider joining the Patreon for just $2 an episode at patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
Do it. And Clyde, how can people interact with us this evening?
They must sing a song in rhyme. That's how they interact with us. No. Today, as always, we just say type capital P, capital O, capital pod in the chat, and we'll take a look at your thoughts, your comments, your questions. And then if you want to give us a sense of what your overall feelings of this particular episode were, just type in capital H, capital F, capital HF in the chat, and we'll take a look at your overall thoughts.
Indeed. Okay. Well, I think it is time to see if if we are fans of the Great American Songbook, which means it is time for some
Hot freaks! Hot freaks!
Hot Freaks. Sorry, I was reaching for my water bottle and it was off screen. Paul, what was your hot freak of this episode?
A hot freak. I am of two minds. I love musicals.
Mm-hmm.
I generally love musical episodes. I love this musical episode. But, I go I don't know if the 19th episode in a series is when you do the musical episode.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you look at it at Star Trek as a whole, totality of all the basically 1,000 episodes, I think it's about time to the musical episode. So I'm of two minds. I there's a part of me goes I love this and I don't want this right now, but I love it. And I think Christina Chong is amazing.
Yes.
She was crazy good.
I agree. Clyde, what was your hot freak?
If you watch TV in the 90s, you'll get this reference. Hated it.
Oh.
Listen,
Clyde.
no, listen.
I need a belly box.
Listen, I love musicals.
Apparently not.
I typically love musicals. I can't say that I always love musical episodes, but I enjoy a good musical. I was into Hamilton day one before it got popular. Before most people had seen it, I was playing that soundtrack like a crazy person and sharing with everyone that I who would listen to it, right? I was just trying to get everybody to listen to it. I'm old school. I love musicals. This I thought was a bad idea executed pretty well. The idea of a sci-fi Star Trek musical, I don't know that was ever going to sit that well with me. I do want to commend the execution of it, but it felt like the opening number was good. And then I just kind of felt myself come on, Spock singing. And I'm I get it. I know exactly what you're saying. Come on. And to your point, Paul, and I say this all the time, if we got 22 episodes and this was in season 4, I've been cool, man, I'm for it. But this is season 2 and we only get 10 episodes and this is So it wasn't really my thing. I will say there were two pieces in here that I thought really stood out, particularly around the whole Spock Chapel thing, and then Kirk mentioning Dr. Marsh. Like those were two pieces of canon that I was like, okay, that has moved the plot a little bit, so that made sense to me. But everything else, I don't know, wasn't really my cup of tea. Again, thought it was executed well, just didn't sit well with me.
Well, I think I'm like if Paul's like maybe in the middle and Clyde is to one side, then I'm the other side, which is that I loved this episode.
Really?
Yes,
Surprise.
there's of course like nits that I have to pick about things, but I was like very pleasantly surprised. I also got to sit and watch this with my mom, which was like very enjoyable this afternoon, before I got on a plane to come back here. So shouts to my mom. We had a really great time. Paul's trying to fix his mic. He didn't he didn't just like leave the stream because he hates me. But yeah, I thought all of the music really drove the characters, which is usually my biggest nitpick with musicals, is that sometimes I'm like, I get we're talking about feelings, but I thought this actually did a nice job of tying in with a lot of plot points and moving things forward. Christina Chong was incredible, but to me, Celia Rose Gooding was just like in freaking incredible. Like hearing her
100%.
sing, I went, oh, I now know why you have a Grammy. Like you're like, oh, I 100% get this now. And I can definitely see y'all's point about, we don't get a lot of episodes, but I think I was thinking about it in the grander scheme of Trek, right? Like we've had tons and tons of episodes in the grand scheme of Trek, and the fact that we've never had a musical episode. We've had plenty of musical numbers, but no musical episodes. I was pleasantly surprised, and yeah, there's tons of stuff I want to discuss, but I really enjoyed it, and I will be listening to some of these songs, I think, into the future. Let's see what some of the audience had to say about some hot freaks here. We got Home
Yeah,
Chicky.
most of them are about how they hate me. So
Hi all.
awesome.
Home Chicky says, hot freak, I loved it. Kuhn says, musicals aren't my things, but I give them credit for trying something groundbreaking for Trek. Indeed.
I agree.
Choopy, very fun for me. A couple surprisingly moving moments, agreed. And I actually enjoyed it more a second time. I'll be very interested to see that. Let's see. Carmen, hot freak, loved it, especially Spock's singing voice. I know I'll rewatch this one time and time again. I'll grab a few more. Fire sign 331. Hot freak once more with feelings. Got a run for its money. Loved the chapel song and the Spock reprise. I think that this was Ramona Lee. When I saw the Klingons, I was expecting a hyped up Klingon opera. Did they end up doing dance music, or maybe it was pop? I'm calling it K-pop, as in Klingon pop.
So a buddy of mine, he watched it early this morning, and we've been texting about this episode all day, right? And for the record, Tori, if you're listening, I'll let people know you actually did like it, right? So we've been going back and forth. We agreed on a couple things, but like we kind of differed. He did not like, I'm putting your business out there, T. He did not like the Klingon part. I actually did, and I hadn't told him this yet. But that was kind of one of the parts where I was like, oh, this is fun. I thought they were going to do something, I don't know, the voice was off to me because they came in with this raspy voice and then went really high. And I was like, man, if they had kept it a little more baritone, I might have been really into it with a nice break beat. But like there were moments, but I just felt myself drifting during some of the songs. Like,
yeah. And I kind of want to go, I figure we'll go like song by song and kind of discuss, because that seems the easiest way to move forward. But there were the one thing I did really like about this episode is it also weaved in some TOS kind of featuring and some of the original series movies, right? So just to kind of discuss. So right off the bat, we see Chapel is applying for yet another fellowship. At this time, it is with, spoiler alert, her future husband, Dr. Corby. He's the one from, if you remember the TOS episode where he makes weird sex robots. He's also her boss, and then they're married. Anyway, there's lots of things that are very TOS-y about that relationship. But this is where we get the start of that. We also get a mention, as you said, Clyde, for Carol Marcus, who eventually creates the Genesis machine. So that will be interesting. I'm going to have to go back because I can't remember if it felt like, do you remember if in the movies, if Kirk remembered he was having a child?
Like that was the thing that got me. And I'll be honest, I've said this many times. TOS is not like, I don't have the deep knowledge of TOS.
Yeah.
That's probably the one that I have the least amount of. That was a shock to me. I was like, whoa, did he know he had a kid? Like, I remember the whole,
because like essentially she's like married to, they both decide they're like married to their work is what I remember. And like there wasn't any majorly significant hard feelings between the two of them, but for some reason in my memory he didn't know she had a kid. But maybe it's been a minute since I've watched that movie, so I'm gonna have to so PW Gray says Jim doesn't know that David is his son. No, right. So that's where I was like, but then Shoopy says yes. So this is where I was like, I have to figure it out. Yeah, I know he meets up with his son in Wrath of Khan. My thing is I can't remember if he had the son prior to that, but obviously they've decided he did. So those are some.
I feel like in Wrath of Khan it was a surprise to him. Like I almost
Paul is back.
Paul's back. I thought he was a surprise in Wrath of Khan. And I mean, we don't really talk about the Kelvin verse that much, but like she shows up in the Kelvin verse, and it's like you, Myrriah. I enjoyed the fact that we had this reference to something that felt like, oh, it's TOS canon. Here is a hard link, right? Because it did feel for a moment as though Strange New Worlds was going off on their own, right? Like they were just setting up on their own timeline, and we were going to have a whole Handsome Mount verse, right? Like, because the way this is headed is like, oh, Chaplin and Spock are about to have this long romance, and Lon, who we've never really heard about before, is wooing Captain Kirk. And I was like, man, like it felt like they were just setting out on kind of this
Lieutenant Kirk.
Yes,
Lieutenant Kirk, right? Yes, but like now they've kind of anchored us into the TOS canon. It feels like, okay, you took us on this ride, but we're back in the right lane and we know where we're going. So I actually that felt a little like familiar, like home to me, and so I appreciated it actually.
Yeah, I want to go back to what did y'all think about the opening credits, which will now be the suffrage of all a cappella groups going forward into the millennia?
I usually skip over the credits, but then like I push skip, and then you just hear like and they're like, oh no, I have to go back. I'm a sucker for those things. I love me some acapella, so I thought they were great.
I agree with Paul 100%. I am too someone who will skip through the credits if I think they're the same thing over and over. Now, last week, because they did the animation, I made sure that I watched every moment of it. Right. This week, I pushed through and then went back, and I think I listened to the credits twice. One, because I was just fascinated by the acapella, because I mean, I'm a man of many interests. Yes, I'm a fan of the Pitch franchise. So acapella groups I kind of dig. Like I said, I like musicals.
There's so much surprising pieces of information about you, Clyde.
I know. I was watching Shrek with my daughter this week. I'm like an ogre. I'm like an onion. I've got layers.
No, Clyde, you're a parfait. You're a parfait.
Yes, thank you, Paul. So, but I think the second and a half time through, I was looking for the names of who was composing this, and I was like, well, how do I feel about the music? And when I found out that it was partly written by Kay Hanley, who also does the Ida Twist Scientist theme kind of music for that show, and my children walk around the house singing that I was like, well, I can't be mad at it. I actually really enjoyed the intro. It was one of my favorite parts of the show.
Yeah, so I thought we'd go kind of track by track and we can kind of talk about them. So we start with, I think, kind of the most, I'd say, like, it feels like if you were to write a Trek musical, this is the song you would write, which is the status report one, right? Where they're kind of going around and everyone's like, what is happening? We're all singing. Why is this going on? And like we get everyone kind of giving their, oh my God, I'm singing. I don't know why, but I'm still going to do my job. The thing that kind of made me a little disappointed though is of all of these songs where everyone's finally revealing big pieces of their character and having these giant aha moments, all we get from Ortegas is I'm a pilot and I fly the ship and then status report. And then she just has some chorus moments. And I know that Melissa also comes from musical theater. And so I was a little sad we didn't get like an Ortegas number somewhere, at least like an interlude. You know what I mean? But what did y'all think of our first opening number?
At first, well, like I was going like, oh, Ethan Peck is pulling this off.
His opening number really surprised me. I will say his second number was a little bit harder for me. His voice was not as strong, I think, especially after hearing everybody else, but in the larger chorus of things, I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I go like, oh, I guess we're in it. That's my first thought. I go like, I guess we're in it. Like, I'm going to have to accept that I don't want this right now, but it's coming. It's coming at me, and like, and it was great. Like, as far as like the experience, like, I thought I really like Babs. I thought Babs, as little as he sang, like, I think the people who were really shortchanged were Ortegas, and for all of it, Pike. Pike has the dumbest storyline,
Well, I think he also has the least trained singing voice.
Oh,
it wasn't good. Sorry, I hate to say it wasn't good. It wasn't great. Yeah. I liked the first number. Like, so I'll just kind of spoiler alert on my opinions. The first number, I was kind of like, oh, well, if it's like this, I might be surprised. I believe it was either by the second song and the third song. I had read that there were 10 of them, and I was counting at that point. I'm going to be honest. Like, I was like, this is 3. All right, we're at 4. Okay, 5. We're halfway. Like, I was like, oh, this one's good. Like, but that first one, I was like in it. Like, I was like, oh, if we stay here, like, if they're all like this, then this might surprise me.
Yeah. Did we talk about the direction of this episode in general? Because I feel like the direction is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the choreography was great, and any of the numbers that had movement, I really enjoyed. The ones that kind of felt a little off to me was while Christina Chong's like singing of her solo number, which I think is that like How Would It Feel? I think is the title. She like is just walking through a room, and then we get that stereotypical like we're underneath a bed sheet moment, which is like something that kind of drives me crazy in like romantic montages of people. I wanted her to be doing something, and it was just I'm walking to this drawer and opening up to look at the watch. I was like, get her to the watch sooner, have her do like dance, I don't know, just like do something with the watch.
I don't know, but she was already being a creeper like earlier when looking at like, so she was doing a lot. No, I think that's totally within character. Like, as far as like, there are always these like, soliloquy type songs, right, where a person is singing by themselves, like On My Own with like Ebony and Les Miserables and blah blah stuff. I feel like it's all that. Like, I will now make a montage of all the under the sheet pillow talky type things and send it to you, Myrriah. It'll be basically my version of like peanut hamper for you.
Yeah, those were because like I will say the difference is because Celia Rose Gooding also has that number. Uhura has that one when she does the like keep us connected song. And to me, that made sense because she's literally talking about being and feeling so alone. And I guess La'an is also talking about that, but because hers is about a longing for another person. I almost wish it was just her being a creeper through the halls, like singing and following Kirk.
Like,
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, like, yes, I think that would work and be funny, and like people would have problems with it.
I mean, of course. I think that's the one number I started to get like a little bored.
Oh, interesting. I actually got bored with the connection song with the Horror because it was just
really?
because it was right after, it was so close to Spock's thing. There was no
I'm the X.
Yeah, I'm the X.
I like the words to that. I just don't know if the quite execution of that. Like I was like, oh, that's witty. Like I just want to know why I'm the X. Like I mean, the engineer in me thought that was funny. Like I enjoyed the lyrics. So
I want to say a surprise MVP for me was Rebecca Romaine, who I know can sing, but it was like really lovely to watch her like sing and dance and truly feel like a bit of like a leader of this episode and really helping to drive a lot of the plot. I also thought it was really funny watching her and Kirk dance because I could see that Rebecca Romaine actually knows how to dance. And our Kirk has a little bit of his footwork wasn't as strong, I'll just say, but it was I liked it as the dynamic though. I was like, I don't know if that's like him or if that was a choice in the character. You know what I mean? Like for him to like, cause she was leading the dance and I thought that was really interesting.
Well, she's number one. She's the leader, right? I think that was probably the weakest number for me. Not because like the song, the singing was bad. It was just like it seems so irrelevant compared to the emotional stakes of all the other things, right? It's like, hey, just be nice and talk to your crew. It just seemed like that seemed really simplistic and low stakes.
Clyde looks like he wants to say something.
I'm trying to decide.
Okay, I can keep talking if you want to.
Well, so here's the thing, right? Like this whole conversation is making me question my thoughts on musicals a little bit and how I judge them, right? Because traditionally when I've seen musicals like Miss Saigon or Wicked or Rent, they're musicals where I think what we're talking about here and what we saw kind of today and whenever you watched it is that there's a story that's happening and then the musical is this burst out, this monologue or conversation of what you're feeling. The thing that I think that was so captivating about Hamilton, which is different, is the music was actually storytelling. And that's a bit different. So if you listen to the Hamilton soundtrack, it's almost like you don't even need to see the actual performance because the music and the lyrics are taking you through the dynamics of the story.
Is Hamilton a musical that's popular now?
You might have heard of it, maybe once or twice.
Oh man, I guess I missed my shot.
It's yes, nicely done, Paul. Very well. And so I think that's I'm not trying to. To me, Hamilton is different than everything else, and I don't want to judge it by that.
Yeah.
But I think I would have that for this actual setting would have been a really interesting take for me because then Star Trek to me has largely been about incredible dialogue followed by, for me, wonderful space battles. And so for me, I kind of all the music was like, well, you're singing about your feelings and I got it, but I'm missing out on the storytelling, the plot. And so I feel like if the music was driving the plot, like truly driving the story, and they were singing almost the lyrics of the script, I might have connected with it better.
Yeah. I mean, there are typically kind of two types, or I guess there's three types of musicals, right? There are the ones where it's like the music is a part of what drives the plot forward, which I think is what you're saying your preference is, Clyde. So that would be things like Hamilton, Rent, Cats.
Cats, there we go.
A lot more Sondheim. But then there are, like, I think of like Grease, there's those musicals where it is there's the talky bits, which gets us from point A to point B, Bye Bye Birdie,
Wicked is like that.
Wicked,
Well, Wicked's very popular though.
Into the Woods. These are all ones that have like interludes of conversation between songs that are usually propelling character forward. So it is more character A, plot B, but there is still movement forward through the songs. And so I think like Kinky Boots is also in that realm as well. So yeah, there's different types. And then there's jukebox musicals, which are like talkie, and then we sing a pop song that has kind of nothing sort of ish to do with what's happening, but it gives you
Mamma Mia,
Jersey Boys.
Jersey Boys, Mamma Mia, these, which are great. I'm an equal opportunist musical liker. But.
Newsflash, we keep talking about other podcasts we could do. It's clearly evident that the three of us could do a musical podcast.
Musical hot dog, baby. Musical hot dogs.
Musical hot dogs.
But actually, like, to respond to you, Clyde, I feel like what you're saying, if you don't mind paraphrasing, is that you wanted it to be a Star Trek episode that was a musical as opposed to a musical that was a Star Trek episode. Does that make sense? Like, because one is a spectacle.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And I feel like they really they tried to make a musical fit in the Star Trek universe as opposed to like, oh, here's a Star Trek episode and it has musical bits about it. And I could definitely see that, like, you know.
Right. So literally what I may need to do is go back and watch this for like a third time with a different lens on it. Right. And I might appreciate it more. Like I said, to say I hated it is probably strong. Right. Kern said something in the chat earlier that I was like, he's not wrong. He said he liked this episode more than the last episode of Peanut Hamper, or the last Peanut Hamper episode, which I was like, I agree 100%. So if that's the bar, this is, I don't hate this episode. But I maybe, I don't know if my frame of reference was off. Like I said, I really did think there were elements of this that were done really well. I was just struggling to really connect with it.
Yeah.
And I care, like I care about this stuff. Like I'm invested. So it missed me.
And I think, to your point, Clyde, it sounds like you enjoyed the numbers that were those ones that are more plot driven, because I think that was the other thing, was this was truly kind of a love letter to a bunch of different types of musicals. It's like there are Sullivan numbers, there's like jazzy Chicago style number for that I'm Ready, which I thought Chapel's number was one of my favorites of the episode.
Agreed. Was that was I'm Ready?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
I'm Ready.
It was killer.
I enjoyed it.
Although once again, like, you go like, oh, that's what happens when you date a damaged person. Like, because I was going like, oh, she's really pulling Spock through the ringer.
So music aside, I'll say the one disappointment that I had was kind of how she handled that situation. Like, it definitely was a situation where you basically talked to the whole crew and then sang a musical number before you actually had a conversation with your
person.
I don't want to call him not like a boyfriend, but I guess it's just like the guy you're talking. Like, I'm old, so I'll just say like the person you're talking to.
The situationship.
Your situationship. Thank you. Bring me into the millennium. But I felt like she should have had a conversation with him at some point before basically having a party to celebrate her getting in. Like that's kind of
and not inviting Spock to that party where he goes like, he's like, yeah, I was invited, but like, justice for Chapel. I will say, like, Boimler really messed this up the 2 episodes ago, because if you're dating someone and someone from the future goes, oh, who are you? Because like this person is like the most important person in the universe, and there's nothing about you. It would screw with you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think this was honestly one of the better, like, I thought this musical did a good job of really highlighting the emotional arcs individually for Chapel and Spock, whereas we finally get to see kind of Chapel dealing with the information we get from Boimler. And then I think we also see the repercussions of Boimler pointing out to us that like Spock is a little too happy right now. And now we're going to get sad Spock. Sad emo Spock is back like after this episode. So I'll be really interested to see what he's like next ep. I also, there were some moments with, I'm still like, I know it's not going to happen, but there were some glances between Mbenga and Chapel that I was just like, maybe she's like seeing the error of her ways, that the chemistry was with this other person all along.
I don't know, man. I think you're wanting it too much.
I am wanting it too much.
I'm with you, Paul.
But
mentor mentee.
What did we think of Pike and Batel's kind of tete-a-tete on screen? One, I think we just have to acknowledge that while Anson Mount is an incredible Pike, he is not our musical leader.
The best thing about that scene was when
Spock they cut it off.
Yeah.
Or not Spock, when Leon was like,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Like I think for me, like what, and this is just my take. Like, I feel like this season has really underserviced Pike, and like there hasn't been really a Pike episode unless you include the episode where half the episode he didn't know who he was. like everything else he's just playing like cheerleader, and I'm actually fine with that, except for the fact that he, for all of it, has one of the more compelling storylines, and that is like, hey, just so you know, you're destined to like
the BP box.
Yeah, the BP box. And so, and I know you can't hit it forever, but like, here you have one more episode, and is it going to be a Pike episode? It's going to be an Ortega's episode. And so like,
yeah, I'm hoping we're going to get a little bit more Pike and Ortegas this next episode, because it is our Gorn finale, based on previews, #spoiler alert. But I think too, I will say, I think it's a bit of a logistics thing, because I know Pike's child was born at the beginning of them filming this season. And so I think there was some strategery in how much he was in, so that he didn't have as extensive of a filming schedule.
And we're glad he had a kid, and like little baby peanut hamburger, like
I was like, get back to work, dude.
Tiny peanut hamper.
I will say I agree with this. Like, I am definitely over the Pike Batel.
Miss Powell prediction that Batel is going to die next episode. I could see that happening.
The minute that she said
priority one,
I got a priority one message. I was just like, you out of there. Like, so long. Like, you're not coming. That's not happening. You're not coming back from that. Like, I immediately knew.
Yeah, Pike has a holiday name after, but no one ever talks about Batel.
Yeah, I don't have a good feeling for her future. I am very excited for me personally for a Gorn episode, though, because I already saw we get puppets, and you know how much I love puppets.
I did not know that, actually.
Oh, you did? I love puppets.
No. Myrriah is a huge puppet fan. Like,
no, that's okay. Good to know.
Myrriah is to puppets what I am for ship-to-ship combat.
Wow, interesting. And I'm Myrriah is to puppets as Clyde is to ship, as Paul is to major character death.
Wow.
This might be the trifecta for us. Like,
It's the trifecta: space battles, puppets, and death.
That might work.
Are you sad? I feel so sad. Why are you smiling at Paul? Oh.
Here's the thing, though. For that to happen, Paul, we're basically doing the same thing they did last season finale when Himmer died, right? And so then that becomes a trend. So now what we're expecting is we're going to lose a cast member on the finale of every season.
I will say, like, to that point, I had a friend who used to work on Grey's Anatomy, and every season, like, somebody
dies. Yeah.
And
another show with a controversial musical episode.
And what happened is, like, I know in the room, like, what happened is they list all the characters and go, who's gonna die this season, and then they go like, can't be this person. Well, and they go through all the list. And they go like, all the reasons why it can't be this person, and then when they get to the bottom, so it can't be this person, but then it's gotta be this person, and then there's a cycle of like death And can you survive the musical chair of death?
I think we figured it out now. Why Spock and Uhura are the only ones from this ship that end up on Kirk's Enterprise.
Everyone else
Because
dies.
the rest of them die.
Chapel
Well, no,
makes it.
Mbenga and Chapel do
and
make
Changa.
it.
And Chapel, yes. So, but that's why the numbers are so limited. It's not just Kirk jumping onto the ship and taking over the crew. It's because there are only like 4 people left.
I don't
Everybody
know.
else is dead.
Yeah, no. Ortega's dies is gonna be sad. If number 1 dies, it's gonna be sad. Lon isn't gonna make it. I love Lon, but she's not gonna make it.
She'll eventually get her own show, and that'll be.
No, like she'll have to like
I don't know. I don't mean in the Star Trek universe. I mean, she's probably going to get offered a leading role somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm watching that show. I'm watching it every week. I'm watching that show.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about. I thought one of my favorite numbers was La'an. Speaking of number 1 and La'an, is number 1 and La'an's kind of moment where they turn off the gravity and do some fun floaty bits.
Were they defying gravity?
They indeed were defying gravity.
Paul, so for those of you, like, we are nerding out on the wrong thing. For those of you who don't know, Defying Gravity is one of the key songs to the musical Wicked.
Does anyone not know the Defying Gravity song?
I'm sure.
Oh,
I mean, I've been singing in my head for the last 15 minutes. So
there's a really funny video of like, I shouldn't say funny, but it's like kind of an incredible video of every actress who's played Elphaba from Wicked, and they cut all of them doing that really intense vocal moment at the end of the song.
High G.
The high G in succession of each other, and it's really intense. But yeah, I really enjoyed that kind of moment because I like their friendship. And even from the beginning of the episode, we see, like, I loved last season when they played the bingo together and we see them having some hijinks and sort of knowing that they have to be so serious with the crew, but they can kind of let their guards down with each other. And so seeing them have that moment, I thought was really sweet. And I love when number 1 is like, you're making me sweat. Like when they're waiting for Kirk to arrive.
That's right. Is there an energy?
You have an energy.
I like that scene up until the shutting off of the gravity, because I was just like, okay, you've taken me out.
It's a musical.
I know, and we've established that I'm struggling with the type of musical that this is.
Magical realism, Clyde. You got to give into the magic.
I mean, like, you're okay with, like, I'm going to teleport from this planet to this ship. No problem. Turning off gravity.
Like, no gravity dancing for you. No gravity dancing.
I mean, here's the thing. If we were in a situation where we've seen people turn off the gravity just for the sake of dancing, which, by the way, I think is a marvelous idea. And if I was on the ship and thought I could do it, I might do that. And just listen, if you're a single guy trying to make your move on a woman, I got to tell you, 0G dancing, if you can pull it off, might be the deal closer.
Well,
so I'm for that. But
the canon, like in Deep Space Nine, there was that episode where Bashir had the alien who had the weak bones, had to be in a wheelchair because she lived in a low gravity environment, and her room was gravity light. So they have turned off gravity before. I mean, canon wise, I know that you don't care about canon, Myrriah, but, like, I'm just saying it's in there. It's in there, Clyde. I think you're just being a hater.
No, I'm not a hater, but that's a fair point. Canon wise, I'm a fan of 0G dancing. Just that seemed like superfluous. Like, oh, let's just...
as opposed to the Klingon knife dancing.
Touche, but I enjoyed the knife dancing.
Oh, the knife dancing, the in-sync Klingons were so good. I wanted to talk a bit more about the La'an and Kirk moment. We finally get her sort of dancing around protocols in order to be like, hey, this is why I'm weird around you. So that I can kind of let you know. And I thought it was really sweet to see La'an sort of get into that more emotional headspace and to get vulnerable. Now, Paul, I think you were trying to adjust your mic, but do you remember if Kirk knew he was having a kid in Wrath of Khan?
Like, Kirk knew he had a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what we were trying to. I was trying to rack my brain and remember because it's been a while since we watched that movie.
And basically when they met, and he goes, "You said to stay away. I stayed away."
Right.
So that's David. David, blah blah blah. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. I thought the scene with La'an and Kirk was great because they didn't sing, and it was forced La'an to be, open as not a consequence of this quantum improbability field. That's like, here, I'm a person. So like, once again, I'm really happy with the emotional development that people are making. Like, and so I think that's great. I think it's still a little ludicrous, in the sense that like Lon's big problem is like, I can't really be myself around people or myself. and I fell in love with this dude in the past. I think that's a little ridiculous because, like, how I feel about hot dogs and no ketchup. But that but
welcome back to Hot Dog Chat.
But if you accept that is the premise, like, then they mapped it out pretty well to get to this point.
I have to say that I was really happy that they didn't work out when she explained why she liked him. And it was this whole idea of, I like the way you look at me because you don't know who I am. And I was kind of like, I don't love that. And then he was like, well, what about how the alternate Kirk? And he was kind of like, what about this? Well, I kind of like the way you look at me too. And I was just thinking, for me, I was like, no, like the way he looks at you because he knows exactly who you are, right? Like, and that you know who you are. And like, it just, I'm rooting for her to be more whole and healthy. And not this like, oh, well, because you don't know who I am, I feel okay with you. Like, no, like, have somebody embrace all of you.
Yeah.
Right. The quirks, the sad parts, the happy parts, like that's what I want for Lon. Not this. It almost felt like, I don't know, kind of like a consolation prize. And I was like, no, your value is way more than that. And so I was actually happy that at the end, what we saw, she was like, no, I'm actually happy the way this turned out. And I'm excited that I think I can take risks now. And I was like, yes, growth. Yeah, you're going to get there. Yes. And so I was I was actually happy the way that turned out.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted her to see her own value and not have to have someone else see her value to see her value, which I think is what you also just said. But I also wanted to, and now I've forgotten where I was going to go. Oh, Will Wheaton brought up an interesting point in the Ready Room today, which was, is it possible that because we're now seeing, Kirk and La'an's relationship, does that in the future affect the way that Kirk treats Khan? Well, we questionable on that in that account, Paul. But how he treats Khan, because he now knows that this is someone who's related to someone that he knows and is this person's, kind of direct ancestor, and is perhaps why he banishes him to the planet rather than something more extreme. Right. And I thought that was a really interesting point that that is, so often I think we're always looking for the TOS references or, references from the other shows in our new Trek, but it's interesting to see how the writers are perhaps working out what happens later on and creating those motivations for those characters later. And I thought that was really interesting. What do y'all think about that?
Ooh. Did you feel that stranding Khan on Seti Alpha 5, or was it 6? I don't know, Seti Alpha 5, so, whatever, like, was a mercy as opposed to go to Starfleet prison? I don't know. It comes down to...
I did.
Because it seems like here's an opportunity for you to reprove yourself to humanity,
So, I mean, it struck me as puzzling. And again, I recently rewatched this because because we had to think about our top 10 episodes. This almost made my list, but there was a little too much cringe worthiness that I didn't think it aged well, so I stopped. But when I rewatched it, like, I didn't understand, like, here is this character who on one hand was a key figure in the
Yeah,
genetic
for
wars, right?
Mhm,
Like a key, not just like somebody who was there, but a key figure,
mhm.
has a ship full of these people, right? Try to take over your ship and is looking to redo this. He has made his intentions clear. And you go, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to strand you on this planet and see if you can figure it out. That's insane to me. No, that's not a roll of the dice that you really want. Like, that's one of those things where it's like, that bad guy's coming back for you, right? Like, so I never really understood that. So this idea that the reason why he showed Khan mercy was this connection to La'an, that tracks for me. Like, that goes, oh, well, if that's part of canon and you're giving me the prequel of why he might do that, I can buy that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and I was like, good for you, Will Wheaton, or your producers, whoever thought of that question. I thought it was a good question. Moving down our track list, I feel like we've talked about most of them. I wanted to go to I'm the X. We touched about this in the beginning. I thought it was an interesting song because I felt like I could actually see, Ethan Peck really trying to work out, like, this song is supposed to be this huge moment of big feelings, right? But he's like trying to do the big feelings as Spock singing a big feelings musical number. And I was like, there's a lot of layers you kind of have to play with here because this is such a big feelings number. Um, and I thought he did a great job acting it. I think the vocal performance was not like the strongest of the group, but then again, he is singing on the same episode as people who've been on like the West End Broadway and have won Grammys. So like, hats off to you for the attempt. um, but I thought there was some like good humor in it. And that's like something I also enjoy about musicals is like, there are usually those like big emotional numbers that we get like in La'an's song and in um, Ahura's song. But then we get this one that is about feelings, but is a little bit more humorous, right? I think about like the Prince's song in Into the Woods. Agony. Yeah. Which is a hilarious song, but they're like having this profound feeling moment, but as the audience we're getting the double entendres, which to me this is what this felt like.
No, yeah, when I was watching that scene, that number, I go like, I'm really enjoying it. But what was really distracting to me, and this is probably the first time I noticed this, is like they shoot on the volume, I assume. Like as far as their stage, and it's like, oh my god, look at that reactor room, it's so pretty. And here's why it's so pretty. I go like, oh, look at its reflection, the warp core reflection on the floor.
Mhm.
Like if you were to do that, like if that was just a green screen, it would take forever to do. Because you do it, you're doing on the volume, like like it's just there, and you're like, oh my god, it's so amazing. It's
Yeah,
so
the AR wall looks great.
and then like that next number with Ahura with the connection number, and then they do the wide shot from there. I go like, it's so pretty. I would say that's the prettiest set on on Strange New Worlds. Like and I go aside from everyone's cabin apparently because that's, but I was going like I was just distracted with that than the music. So there we go.
I have to say the I don't know, just the visual effects in Strange New World are the best in Star Trek ever. Like this is just the prettiest ship, right? And what just kills me is this is the oldest ship. Like this is the oldest ship, right? Even Discovery's got like fancy new tech, and where we're at now, they had a whole retrofit, right? This is the oldest ship. Technically, I guess it's the second oldest ship if you want to talk about the NX-1 and that show whose name I won't say. But it's the most beautiful design and the visual effects and what we see. And pause with you, seeing the reflections and everything, and I'm just, it's stunning. Like it's absolutely just.
And the
stunning.
lighting is so amazing because, like, you can be under a sheet and still look really good.
That was
And
that.
so-
That was that hotel they paid cash for.
Yes.
Like that Canadian light is just so beautiful.
Beautiful quality of light in Toronto.
The shimmer off of those silk pajamas was spot on.
It was good. I wanted to talk about Ahura's song, the Keep Us Connected, which I thought was a beautiful performance. And I also liked kind of we've gotten a lot of her backstory these last 2 seasons, but I liked sort of hearing her compare her personal journey to her professional journey, which I thought the song did a good job of creating that tension of someone who is feeling a loss personally as well as professionally, and how those two things have affected her kind of choices moving forward. I also like that it seemed to still have the resonance of like the lessons she's learned from Mariner, in like how she has to make these personal connections even through the loss, which I appreciate in these last couple of episodes, that the impact of the crossover episode was not just like a blip, like there were repercussions from that, which I think is smart, because it would be silly to just like have this thing happen and then none of the lessons learned really pertain to anything going forward into the future. So hats off to the
Almost like
writers.
it was a ship in a bottle.
Whoa. You could say a message in a bottle, perhaps.
Ooh, yes. I don't want to call it a bottle episode, but like it literally was not that. And
Right.
And I think that's what was so powerful about the crossover is it wasn't just this thing that happened. Then you're like, oh, that was an event. It had repercussions. Like you look over and Paul, like you said earlier, like Boimler just came in and blew up Spock's whole spot with Chapel and just been like you don't make it in the book, right? So couldn't have been that special. And then
I can't wait till a future version of Myrriah comes to my house and says, just so you know, Paul, B becomes really famous. My wife becomes really famous. And strangely, no, you're not mentioned at all. I don't
he
know what
wins an
happened.
Oscar, you're not in the speech.
It's really weird. Anyway, I'll catch you later. I can't wait for that happens. I'd be so happy for my wife. And then I'll start learning a Chapel song, like the lyrics to Chapel song, and start applying to
weird fellowships.
Yeah, exactly.
Our next musical number is our grand finale. So I do love that in order to break the system, they have to just go all out.
Super sing.
Yes, they have to do the grandest of grand finales. I loved getting to see all of the small musical numbers. I loved the dancing on the bridge. And then I absolutely loved our K-pop Klingons beaming in. I thought it was hilarious. I
love that. Klingon pop, K-pop. Love it, Myrriah. Love it.
You're welcome. But I wish I did. My only wish was I thought it would be funny, but it would have been far too much budget-wise, just knowing how much it costs to do musical numbers. When they were the whole fleet is affected, I kind of wanted a small montage of a bunch of different bridges all breaking out into song.
I'm with you. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, that's how they're gonna get it. It's like everybody's got to sing at the same time. And they were like, no, just our ship. And I was like, really?
And the Klingon ship.
And the Klingon ship.
Which had some moves. Also, Bruce Horak was the lead Klingon. So we had the actor who played Hemmer was back on the show. So I liked seeing him back with us. But yeah, I loved it. I wanted more. And I think it's appropriate because to me, it's okay, if the real world of Star Trek, right, is this standard, and then the musical version is a pretty standard Great American Songbook musical. Of course, for Klingons, it's going to be T-Pain meets K-pop group plus NSYNC dance moves, because that's the opposite of Klingon opera. Do you know what I mean? It's that's the high musical standard. The only thing I don't agree with is I don't think it brought dishonor.
No.
No dishonor upon their houses. No. What did y'all think about our K-pop Klingons?
I mean, I think we can say that was the best part of the finale. I think that I like their outfits. You know, the gold, armor plus, it looked really good. The finale was not my favorite number because even though it pulled all the stops, like, visually, the song was just basically, we can do it, we did it.
Yeah.
And so it did not stop the show for me. But, like, that said, like, it was very good. Like, if you ever want to see a showstopper musical number, there's that Adam Sandler movie where he plays the rock star. I think it's called Pop Star, and I think that has a really good finale number because it has a lot of things, but, like, but not everything can be Pop Star.
Yeah.
I love the Klingon kind of pop song. I agree with you, Myrriah. I think they could have taken a little bit further. I think it could have been longer. Like, it was actually pretty short.
It's really short.
Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I think it could have been longer. I think there could have been some things in it.
Oh, I need the extended cut.
For real. And I thought that, like, it was pop, but I felt like that could have had a little bit more, like I said earlier, like a little more downbeat, a little more like bass. That would have been where, like you mentioned, like T-Pain, like I felt like that was their moment to kind of bring in a little, like, I don't know, a little bit more fun. Like, as long as you're exploring genres, like, go for it. And that would have been the moment that I've been like, oh,
What's
okay.
the Klingon equivalent to "I'm on a boat"?
I'm drinking blood wine.
Yes.
I'm drinking blood wine.
That's right. Yes. Doc.
Fun fact,
wait,
I'm on a boat is my go-to karaoke song.
I'm on a boat.
Well, because you could do a bye, but Klingon, like, I'm killing you tonight. I know there's going to be a fight. Is that something like that, right? I think that'd be pretty. I'd watch that.
Cow pa pa pa.
So, I mean, like, when we do, the Klingon Game of Thrones, Myrriah, we will make a musical episode there.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm watching that. I'm sign me up. Klingon Game of Thrones musical episode.
Yeah, it's gonna happen one day.
That's gonna be amazing.
One day, Paul and I will have the keys to the kingdom.
That's right. That's right. And then people will be making podcasts about us. They go like, I don't know why they did that. It was a choice. I understand it was a choice, but okay, like, they're old.
Y'all are falling off the rails, Hope Chicky. They're all tired of us.
Yes.
I did just want to say, I think the other thing about this episode is, like, often there are blinks of this show that feel so much like the original series, and there's been like some bad moments where you're like, oh no, we've fallen back in. But then to me, this felt like a swing the original series would have made. Do you know what I mean?
Well, like, I feel like for the, like, like, I don't know if the original series would ever do a musical. That said, like, the shots that they chose and all the stuff they did, I was going like, oh, this feels like what the original series could have done.
Right.
The visuals were different. Like, there's no twirly, but all of it still felt like this could be connected to. Whereas I don't always feel like Enterprise definitely felt like it was not of the same visual universe,
right,
as TOS, and Discovery also not the same. But like this, this has really done a really good job of trying to pay homage to that while staying original. So,
yeah. And like a lot of the blocking choices too, like you were saying, Paul, when we get those like big wide shots of engineering, and like we got some of those like interesting, like when it's Spock and Pelia and La'an kind of in that chorus triple shot. And, there's just like all these things where you can see a lot of the visual references, not only I think to the original series, but then to like a lot of musical moments that we've all come to love. I mean, it's called, Subspace Rhapsody, and it's like, oh, we're getting the triple shot of like, this is Bohemian Rhapsody, and we get all these little moments intertwined, and like the Klingons to me felt like prime MTV music video moment, and like I can see the visual references that they're playing with, and I really enjoyed them.
I know.
Yeah, I agree. It did feel like it would fit. This feels most closely that it fits into the TOS. And not that dissimilar. Like when we talk about Lower Decks feel, even though it's animated, feels like you don't have to think about the fact that it's the TNG kind of time space. It looks like it. Everything screams TNG.
Yeah.
So they've done a really good job of staying consistent kind of within the franchise. I think this time around.
Yeah, it's funny. Some people are talking about Roddenberry would have shut down a musical. Probably correct. Although, fun fact, Roddenberry did write lyrics to the original theme song to Star Trek so that he could get a co-writing credit on the theme song so that he would always get royalties for that. So, playing the game.
Peanut hamper. Ooh.
I mean, he also cast his wife as the voice of the computer, which is just a check for decades.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
What did you all think of Pike kind of giving Uhura that kind of nudge of like, you are the voice of the Enterprise? I also loved the switchboard moment early on in the episode.
It was really well cut. It was really well cut.
Yeah.
This is the second episode where Uhura saved the day. So like it felt a little Uhura heavy as far as the narrative, not So I was like, oh, okay, I guess she should be the one to carry the musical number.
Yeah, like, I mean, with the vocal talents on this show, she was the correct choice for this episode.
And so, but like from a narrative standpoint, I go like, it's not my favorite. I feel like now there's like a misbalance of how I know people. Like usually it would go like in old Trek it would go, you got Picard, Riker, Data. Those are the three, and then it just became Data, Picard, and then you start going into ancillary episodes where here's a Riker episode, here's a Worf episode, here's a Troy episode, blah blah. Right now, I know very little about Picard or Pike aside from season 1, and now we have all the we're I don't say bottom heavy, but like we're the hierarchy isn't in play here in the decision, and so you go, Clyde.
It's interesting. So a couple points here. One, I love the switchboard episode. I feel like as musical shows go, it reminds me of the things where you're like, if you're doing this musical in a bar, like a coffee bar, like you'd hear like the coffee machine going and the cups going and like. So I thought that was just excellently done, and I was.
Yeah, it's like Cups and Pitch Perfect.
Yes, it's perfect, right? Like I was like, that's great. Paul, to your point about how we know people and whether or not this kind of episode kind of helped us, it feels like it's a little spotty. And part of that is because not so much in Strange New World, but we've been with Pike and Spock for quite a long time because we got originally introduced to them in Discovery.
Sure. Fair.
And so we started to see that, and we've gotten a lot of Spock.
Sure.
Like in the course of this, like we probably know more about Spock than anyone else because we also had Discovery where we were learning about Spock's family, right? For like Amanda's been with us for like 6 years now, right? But then when you look and say, okay, how much do we know about Chapel? Like we had a whole M'Benga episode, kind of like 2. Still don't know if I know a lot about M'Benga. I mean, we also had his daughter episode. But then we're in the season of 2, and other than she's a great pilot, we know nothing about Ortegas, right? I barely even know the name of the woman who sits next to Ortega and smiles a lot and nods.
Mitchell.
You said what? Mitchell.
That's her name.
There you go. And that's anybody got a first name? Anybody got a first name? Anybody know a first name?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Asian Lady Mitchell.
Right. She she is the what was the character that Ariam on Discovery?
Sure.
Everybody's like, oh, she died. I'm like, please stop pretending like we knew about Ariam before this episode.
Her name's Jenna Mitchell, by the way. She's a
Mitchell.
Lieutenant Jenna Mitchell.
Lieutenant Jenna Mitchell. So I feel like there are a lot of spots along the bridge that we don't know. We're getting a little bit like, honestly, I feel like we know more about Samuel Kirk than we do half of the bridge crew.
So here's another like random thing. Like throughout all of Strange New Worlds, I go like, I don't know about Sam Kirk and his mustache, but it's really growing on me.
I love the mustache. I really wanted a brother duet in this episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that would have been great. Like, I feel like, Sam Kirk is a good looking dude, even with the mustache.
I think it's not even with. It is Sam Kirk is a good looking dude, plus he has a mustache.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have loved it.
It's a full-on Tom Selleck mustache.
But
like it is.
It looks like a bit of like a very well groomed like pipe cleaner kind of thing. Like it seems like a very thin mustache to me, like intentionally thin.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I'm seeing it wrong.
I just want to call him, Sam Kirk PI.
like have him wear a Hawaiian shirt. Oh, Hawaiian shirt.
Shorts and a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm looking for the helicopter. Like seriously.
Bring it on.
For those younger viewers, there was a show called Magnum PI.
I think it's on a streamer now. You can still watch it.
Like,
the longest opening credits ever.
Yes.
You can join us on our Substack, Magnum PI. It's under the hot dog stack.
And we're not talking. Hey, and we're not talking about the CBS reboot because they did reboot it.
Yeah.
No, original only. Yes, all of those shows that came out. So obsessed with helicopters for a period of time. I feel like every network TV show had a helicopter.
Hey,
I think what happens when helicopters became cheap to rent at one point in the 80s, and they go like, we can do this.
Listen, if you guys start bashing on Airwolf, this podcast ends right now. That's all I'm saying.
And the badass theme song.
Yes.
I think actually a fun fact, fun media history fact. So the reason there were a lot of helicopters is because we had a very large surplus of helicopter pilots after the Korean and Vietnam Wars.
There you go. There you go. Well, there you go.
Nice.
So,
there you go.
Fun fact of the day.
War keeps on paying off. That's what you're saying, Myrriah. Great. I'm glad you have that counterpoint of view. It's not my point of view, but the Space Navy it is.
Space Navy. Anything else y'all wanted to say about this episode?
I don't know. I think like our episode has gone long.
We have gone on a lot of tangents, but
yes.
I think it's been good. We had to, sing out our feelings with none of us being able to sing. I'm assuming I cannot sing. I'm very terrible at it. There was a reason I was the stage manager for all of the musicals and I was never in them. Because I would audition and get no parts.
I didn't even audition. I know better than that. Like I
actually can sing many notes. They're just generally wrong.
Next week is our finale. I know we talked about it briefly at the top, but any other predictions for our finale episode? I think we're going to finally get a little more Tegas. I think we're going to get some more Pike. And I think we said it before. I think Battelle might meet her maker at the end of this episode.
Yeah, like I'm never looking forward to someone dying. No, that's not true. That's not
like you love main character death, Paul.
That's not true. I hope it's earned though. I hope it's not gratuitous.
Yeah.
I hope it's not Tasha Yar.
No.
But yeah, I mean, what I really want is
Ortega saves the day, and Battelle's like, "Screw you, Pike. I'm just gonna go date Ortegas now."
Pike should not date Ortegas.
No, not Pike. Battelle.
Oh, Battelle.
Yeah.
Battelle, the captain, should not be dating someone who is That's not a good power dynamic. Like we
Not the
started
same
this,
ship. Not the same ship.
we started this whole where like oh look at that, Pike is hooking up with another captain. You could do that. Captains go hook up with that was where we're like this is gonna be a different show because like there isn't an abuse of power.
Brings up. Do you think we're finally gonna get a remake of an adult Gorn?
Puppets, baby.
Yes.
Puppets.
Yes. Well, listen, I also don't want to see Battelle and Ortegas together because I don't want Ortegas to fall for someone who is then eaten by a Gorn. So
yeah,
that would not be good. I any predictions on how many people die to Gorn attacks next week?
I don't. I think it'll be Battelle, and I don't think there'll be like what I'm looking forward to is the Chapel Spock breakup. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I thought didn't they just break up?
Oh no, but they broke up
officially.
But she's probably going to leave for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So like I want to see how that is, or if she gets hurt and Spock has to fight a Gorn to save her. Like it, or something like that. Because I should have never broken up with you, Mr. Spock. Blah blah blah. I don't know. Like but like I'm looking forward to see how that resolves. I still think Chapel is a hot mess.
Listen, I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but Stress Free Kate brings up a very good point. We gotta see the adult Gorn fly the ship. I need to see them little dinosaur arms at work. I just need to understand how this works.
But
it's gonna be great. I'm excited. I think it's gonna be a good time. Let's see. I think that is it for this week, y'all. Next week is the final episode, and we Lower Decks will start in September. I think we'll probably take the week after the finale off, and then we'll come back with some fun content for y'all. In the meantime, we'll kind of take a peek at maybe some classic Trek to review. Let us know if there's anything you would like us to talk about in that downtime. You can subscribe, rate, and review on Apple. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps people kind of find new people to listen to, and it's super helpful for us. You can visit StarTrekPod.co to find links to everywhere you can listen or watch the episode, as well as to our Patreon. Clyde, can you remind folks where they can find us on Twitter? And also, we're on Instagram at the same handle.
At Star Trek Pod. Come check us out.
Do it. Thanks, Karen, for helping run our Twitter. I'm trying to decide if we're going to get a Threads. TBD. Thank you all again so much. We will see you all next time. Live long and prosper. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.